Here we
Amazing.
go. All right. Hello. Welcome. Thanks for joining me from all the way from Spain.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Uh, how long ago was it that you moved back?
Oh gosh. Um it seems like it always seems like a lot, and then it seems like it was like yesterday that I was over there. I guess I moved back in 2012, so it's been 8 years, 7
Okay.
8 years.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, because obviously we met when you were out here in New York. Have
Mhm.
you? How much music have you been playing since you moved back?
Um Not that much really. I mean, when I moved back, when I was there, I kind of continued doing stuff for kids, a kids band, and
Hmm.
I kind of kept doing the concerts for kids. The group called La Fantastica Banda, and that was really fun. And I did that for like 4 or 5 years. They actually did, but I gave that up a few years ago to concentrate on my own stuff because I felt it was kind of an excuse to not work on my own music,
Hmm.
because I was doing shows with them, and then I had like a lot of day job. Excuse me. So I did that for a while, and then yeah, like 2 or 3 years ago I stopped and decided that I was going to do my own thing. But basically, I do stuff for myself. I
Hmm.
every summer I'll like bring all my equipment up to my parents' summer apartment and record like 6 or 7 songs or the beginnings of 12 songs or whatever, and just leave it on my computer. That's the way things are right now. So I still make music, but I'm not really out putting it out that much, or playing for people.
Life just kind of got in the way.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty much I started having like I guess a career. It got a few times. I did a lot of traveling. I picked up different hobbies. I just been through a lot of stuff in the past few years. Like
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, I was in a job where I was working like 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. 3 or 4 days a week because I was working for like a big four consulting firm, and there was no way to have any sort of life. So yeah, that really got in the way.
I'm curious how your life kind of changes when you don't have something like music. As I assume it's, on top of being a creative outlet, it can also be a bit of catharsis as well. Do you tend to process things differently when you're not creating music?
Yeah, actually, I kind of identify a pattern there. I've done a lot of therapy since I stopped doing music.
Do
I
you
mean, I've
bring your
always done a
guitar to
little bit of
therapy?
that. No, but I always give my therapist like my records at a
Yeah.
certain point, and and it always comes up, why I'm not doing it. Like in the past like 2 or 3 years, I also am in a relationship with someone who's very, very creative, and put a lot of my creativity into supporting his endeavors. Like my husband designs board games, and we put a lot of energy into his Kickstarter campaign and stuff like that. And doing like little things that keep you busy, that are interesting, that are kind of problems. But then also I worked for quite a while as a designer up until really recently. And even though I was working as a UX designer, that takes a lot of creative energy out of you as well, because you're solving problems and you're just kind of in five different modes of thinking. So on an emotional level, and processing, feelings of what's going on and stuff. I think, just genuinely, until like something really dramatic is going on and I need to process it, I won't really write a song. I'll just play covers a lot and listen to music and get emotional about other people's stuff. It's when like things get a little bit difficult that I need to write. And or when I lock myself in a room and tell myself that I'm going to do some writing.
Yeah, well, because you're actually in your makeshift home studio right now, hence the very fancy microphone.
Yeah. I slowly have started going back to getting things together. I mean, I'm such a terrible producer. I mean, when I was really active playing music for a number of years, I would play alone in my room with like a 4 track and just record that. And I'd play the songs over and over and over again. And with like digital audio and how easy it is to record things, now I might just play the song, record it, and leave it there and forget about it. And I've been doing that for the past for the past years too. It's like, okay, I got that out of my system, I don't need to play the song over and over again, like I did when I was younger. So it's been amazing. I was kind of going through some of the songs for tonight, and just the muscle memory is like really interesting, it's like I haven't played this song in like 4 years, and okay, I did have to YouTube because I wanted to play a particular song. I was like almost praying that somebody would have uploaded the tab because I just don't have I don't have that great of an ear for this stuff.
You don't have all this stuff written down somewhere?
No, I never wrote stuff. I never did. Now I've gotten a little bit more into it. Like I have a song that I was working on now, and I have I bought the other day, I got excited and I bought a MIDI keyboard, and which is a lot better than the thing that I was trying to play keyboards with. And I got really excited about wrote them down, but I had to Google the piano chords. I know nothing of music theory. It's just all like what happens, and I never learned to read or write music. The only reason I know chords names is because I needed them to like see the tabs online and learn to play songs and not have to go through the process of picking them out by ear.
How did you learn to play music without either knowing how to read music or actually understanding any of the chords?
Well, they teach you. Yeah, I did take classical guitar lessons when I was a teenager, and they taught me with the tab, with guitar tab, and it just says, okay, string 1, finger 1, fret 1, and you go boop boop. And so over time, you do learn the names of the chords, but there's a difference between learning the names of the chords and going to like, okay, this is C, A, D, A, W sharp, whatever. And I have to look that up and figure it out. And so yeah, the internet has always helped me do what I do. The other thing is, and that's why I can't write these things down, is that I don't really write that many songs with like standard chords anyway. I always like do something. It's just like where my fingers land on the guitar. So it's a C. There's some C. I know there's something around a C there, but it's not really. It's a C something, and that's why I was having trouble figuring out what I had to play when I wanted to play a song that I wrote like 10 years ago. 20 years ago. I don't know, something crazy like that.
We're old.
I feel really old. I read that you were doing next. The next one, it was John Vanderslice.
Yeah, tomorrow night.
And I got really excited and kind of intimidated. I was like, oh, that sounds so cool. And I remember I love this song, Exodus Damage that he
Hmm.
has.
Hmm.
And I remember listening to that on MySpace. It was on MySpace.
Yeah.
And I listened to that song on MySpace, and I got really hooked on that song. And to this day, I really love it. And it's about September 11th. I mean, it's like old.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? This is how we're able to date ourselves now, are the social networks that we reference. Remember, I don't know, was Facebook, was Friendster a thing over there?
No,
No.
never
Okay,
made it
never.
really.
Yeah.
No, no, I think MySpace was like the first thing. I worked for a number of years before I moved to the US. I was working for a social network called 20, which was almost prior to Facebook. Um, and because Facebook was like only available in English in Spain,
Hmm.
so all the teenagers were getting on 20, TUENTI, and it was the biggest social network in Spain. And it's really funny for me now, because one of my first jobs there was in like the content department, and you weren't allowed to have an account until you were about 14 because of European laws. So we had to delete accounts for kids all the time, and the team that I was on deleted accounts. So now when I'm like working with a programmer on something, and they tell me they were born in 97, I say, I probably deleted your 20 account like 4 times, and at 20, and they were really excited about it because they were really young kids, and that was what like the grown-up kids were doing. And then everybody grew out of it, and that social network disappeared, and things changed a lot. But I still get like cred among people who are in their early 20s for having worked at 20.
You have social media credit. It's funny. Well, it's not funny. I hear a lot of these stories about they do a certain amount of this with AI, but there's like a team of people whose job it is to crawl through all of the Facebook reports and just look at all the incredibly gnarly stuff out there, which I gotta imagine it has to be like I mean, talk about losing your faith in humanity, just sitting there and reading the worst of that Facebook has to offer.
I was on that. We were doing that, and I always I I always tell this in like a private conversation, but I'll say it now. I mean, I don't think it's like we had a team of interns doing this work, and you'd have like a girl in her last year of college coming into work for her first day as an intern at 20, and you're like, okay, you're gonna do porn. And she'd be erasing dick pics all day, Her work day was like 5 hours, but it was like somebody with like really bright eyed and like, oh, wow, this is going to be so fun. Then it was a really fun place to work at because it was, there were lots of startup perks and they were doing really well and blah, blah, blah. But the people who had to do content, that was a complicated job sometimes. And sometimes it was just like really stupid. But it
My
was
impression is that's just what it's like being a woman on the internet, just sort of sitting there and erasing
scrolling through.
unsolicited dick pics all day.
Yeah, that could be it. That's the other thing about getting old. And I think it's a little bit heavy, but in my life I'm getting to this point where as a woman I'm moving out of the victim space into the you don't exist space. I'm just like right in between those two ages. It's like all this time I spent being like a young girl on places and being like, where you're like so vulnerable. And so uh, yeah, it's just I feel a lot when I don't know, this is getting a little heavy, but when I think about when I was active in the music, I started out, I was about 19 or 20, and I was just surrounded by a lot of guys who were a lot older than me, a lot of people who had completely different, nobody was out there to protect me, and even though I put myself in a lot of ugly situations by my own will, I wasn't really mentally prepared for what was going to
Yeah.
be going on around me. And so, lately reading stuff about reading stuff about Ryan Adams, who I just love a lot of his music. Just brought back some really ugly memories for me of going like, gosh, yeah, that's just not a place where where I want to where I would want my daughter to be or somebody that I'm close to. It's just really it was just really rough. Because you never know why somebody is paying you the attention that they're paying you. What hidden agenda is involved in these things, and I don't know. It just made me really sad. I had a hard time reading about it, but at the same time, I couldn't stop
Yeah.
reading about that those types of things, and that was something I wanted to write about. And I haven't gotten around to it, but maybe I will eventually.
I'm really curious now that you're back there, how the Madrid music scene is different for you than New York City.
Wow. Well, I I let's see. When I first moved back, I was living really close to like one of the really great venues in Madrid, and it was just like if I decided I wanted to go to a show, I would just walk like 100 feet and cross the street, and I could see the show. It was amazing,
Mhm.
um, and I did that for the first year, and I was just kind of disappointed at how few shows there were. I was disappointed to move to New York that everything that I wanted to see was like sold out in a huge venues. The artist that I
Mhm.
got to see in Madrid at this place that was like an important venue. I'm talking about Sala Sol. Um, it's I got to see some really. You'd see I'm trying to think about like a drop a name or two. I don't know. Maybe Y Oak. When I was in New York, I
Okay.
wanted to
Okay.
see Y Oak, and they just played around the corner from my house in Madrid in a really small
Yeah.
venue, and I couldn't get into a show in New York when I was living there because you know it was just hard to get into shows.
They would have sold out like
Um,
2 nights at North Six over here.
yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. And but then also I did notice that a lot of the bands that I got to see in in New York City. I would go to those for of bands that I had never heard of. Not a lot of them, but a good percentage of them eventually ended up on like Primavera Sound, which is the big festival in Barcelona. Um,
Hmm.
um, Rosters like they were playing big places eventually, but it took them like 2 years to get to that. So it was kind of like when I was a kid and movies had to be dubbed, and it took a movie a year and a half to play in Spain.
I'm curious, also just from the standpoint of, because I think that in the States,
Whoops, it broke up. Did we lose the
just
connection?
generally is that you want to listen to music in different languages. I don't think like, outside of like those specific cultures, outside of,
Hmm.
the Spanish speaking culture in New York City, I assume that it's harder to kind of break through with an English speaking audience if most of the songs you've written are in Spanish.
Yeah, yeah, I guess that's it's funny. The whole Spanish English thing is always complicated for me here because a lot of people I know really connect to the songs in Spanish well here, and and it's just I personally find it difficult to connect to a song where I don't understand the lyric.
Yeah.
Except for like three or four, like um Astrid Gilberto songs and stuff like that that are like mega classics that I've heard in English or in
Yeah.
Spanish.
Your
So I know
Portuguese
what
is
the
not
lyrics
is not great.
say. Portuguese not. No, especially my Brazilian Portuguese. Um yeah, I have a hard time. I mean, for time where French rock was really a thing. French indie rock was big.
Mm.
Dominic A, you ever and stuff like that. Um, Diabo Lagoon, so a couple of French rock bands. And I always struggle with not understanding the lyrics. But then the other day, like my husband said to me, because I do this to him all the time. There's a song and I'll just start translating the English lyrics to Spanish so he knows what's going on in the song. And he looks at me like, why do you, does it really matter? He was like, yeah, it really
Yeah.
matters. It really, really matters.
That's your job. It's what you do. Like,
Yeah,
lyrics are very important.
It's what I really care about. It's what I
Yeah.
really, really care about. If the lyric doesn't work for me, it just I just can't get into the song. I mean, sometimes there's stuff that is like very, very simple, but it always makes a point and it always makes sense. We had a band that was we had a couple of bands. Like when I grew up in the 90s in Spain, when I was a teenager in the 90s, there were a lot of indie bands. There was like this big surge of indie bands from the north of Spain. And a couple of them was just singing gibberish, sort of like Cocteau Twins style, like made up languages. And they were fun. And then a few of them sang in English and really poor English, which always made me a little nervous. And since I got back, 2012, 2013, there's some really, really good Spanish bands singing in Spanish, and musically they're very impressive. I'm not the person to ask about like current things.
Sure.
I'll just pick out like if I gave you names, I'd give you three that like my friends who actually are really into this music would go like, those are so obvious, Irene, those are like, everybody knows that band.
Yeah.
But I'm always it's always pretty impressive. And there's some fun stuff.
Great. So before we get into kind of some heavier topics, about the current situation, I'd love it if we could kind of break this up, have you do 2 songs and then chat a little bit more, and then 2 more songs. Before you get started on those, though, you mentioned kind of going back and deciding which songs you were going to play. Can you give me a little background on why you decided this particular set of songs?
Well, they're just kind of, let me see, because I had written down a few as candidates. A called Blue Room, and it's a little bit about claustrophobia, and it's just it's about claustrophobia. It's about a tour I did, and I was like in a really bad hotel on the outskirts of Paris, and I was just afraid of leaving the room. Even as I was going up the elevator, like some guy was like trying to talk to me, and I was like, no, I'm meeting my boyfriend in my room, and I got off on the different floor of the elevator. It was a sketchy neighborhood. It was a weird situation, and I was in Paris and I really wanted to go out and do stuff, and I couldn't do anything because I was so far away from everywhere, and it was a sketchy neighborhood and I couldn't go out at night. So
you feel like maybe there might be something in the air that might make you want to play a song about claustrophobia? Is that all right?
I'm not particularly claustrophobic because we have a lot of space, but you not being able to leave the house. Yeah, it's about just having to stay put. That's definitely, and and it's a song. It's a song that I hadn't listened to or played a lot, but my husband seems to like it because he has it on a playlist, and once in a while it'll be on a playlist and he'll go to his friends like, see, that's Irene, and they're like, really? She's a musician?
Yeah.
And then they go like, wow, this is good. And I'm like, I made 7 records.
Isn't it nice that your husband brags about you to his friends, though?
Oh yeah, he does. He likes to. It makes me happy. Yeah, I could brag about him too, but I don't. No, he's. I said when I say that that I put aside a lot of my artistic things to like support his projects. It's just that he's such an enthusiastic person about his projects, and he just goes all in. And I get a little claustrophobic when I get involved in my projects. So it's not like I avoid it, but I try to diversify as much as I can, because it can be really time consuming. If I try to make something and I try to record, I forget to eat, I forget to sleep, and I get really obsessed about it. And it's not good for like my general mental health. So, but he's really good at just like going crazy and not going crazy at the same time. So he's fun to be around in that sense. I'm just much more serious, and, like stern, and like, we have to get this finished and it doesn't sound perfect, and he's like, just get it out there and do something.
Great. So do you want to do 2 songs and then we can break and chat a little bit more?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
Okay. I'll do that one called Blue Room. I think I'm in tune and you can hear it, right?
Yep. Yeah, it sounds great.
Okay. I'm coughing, but I always cough. Just so you know. With a pocket full of sand ticket stubs, I checked into a blue and green hotel with a view of chimneys and satellite dishes. Oh, it's just like any other day in Paris, France. The room is burning. The room is burning. The room is burning. But I'd rather stay. I may be reborn in Paris, France. I may be reborn in Paris, France. The room is burning. The view is burning. The room is burning, but I'd rather stay. There we go. I'm gonna drink a bit of water in between.
You got to hydrate.
Yeah. Okay. So I could try a song in Spanish now.
Sure.
And this one is from a record I made called El Día Después, the day after. And I don't really know why I picked this one. I did pick this one because I got a really lovely note about it from someone in, I think it was in the UK, who really liked the song. And it was like the sweetest note ever, because he said it was one of his favorite songs. And I think along with a couple of songs that are just amazing to me, like Waterloo Sunset or something, it was like that's like the most unbelievable compliment ever. I don't know, he connected with this song, and that was nice. And he, an English speaker. Anyway, it's called El Día Después. El día después del despecho, dejaré de fingir que sé lo que estoy haciendo y ya sé que llorar no sirve para nada. Y ya sé que llorar no sirve para nada. Y Bea sabe que espiarme no sirve para nada. Y aunque lo intenté y no tiene desprecio, todo lo que inventé, estoy orgullosa de ello. En días que la verdad no sirve para nada, ya creo que la verdad no sirve para nada. Creo que siempre lo tendré presente. Ese poema que hizo tanto daño, el sentimiento que me ahoga tanto, que Héctor jura borrarán los años.
All right. I remember reading, hopefully I won't butcher this too much, but I remember reading that I think Reed Davies was a teenager when he wrote Waterloo Sunset, or he was like 19 or 20. And I think he like broke his leg and was up in the hospital and wrote it from this. It's like it's a great story, but you know, I don't know. I don't know if it's some of these stories, you know, if you hear like the famous one is, yeah, yeah, but also like, you know, the Satisfaction story that Keith Richards, like he woke up in the middle of the night and had the guitar riff for Satisfaction, and I think like hummed it into a tape recorder, and then you know, it woke up the next morning, it was there. And you hear all these stories about musicians having this sort of, you know, divine inspiration, and part of it I think is there's some hope in that. You know, it's nice to know that like, you know, you can just sort of, you know, channel that and it can come to you, but it also uh it's kind of disheartening at the same time, right? It's disheartening in those times when you're working really hard and you're banging your head against the wall and you're having trouble writing something.
Um, yeah, I've never had a shortage for like ideas. My frustration comes when you have to get to the middle of it, you know, where
Mm.
you're right there. You just really need it to come together, and you need it to be a full song, not just kind of a funny um, tune that you hum to yourself. And like I have hard drives and hard drives of like 40-second clips of me noodling around on the guitar, and I listen to them like years later. What really, really good. If you pursued that, you would probably have a really good song that you're proud of. But so there's a lot of work in that, and I think that's where I end up falling out. When I was a younger person, I was just so obsessive about finishing those songs and playing them, and now it just, yeah. But the creative inspiration part, I think personally, like you just have to oh, it sounds awful, generate a lot of
Sure.
ideas. Yeah, generate a lot of ideas. But yeah, I think that the people who really get to something amazing, they're just very prolific, and you just go and go. But sometimes something just pops into your head, and you lucked out. And there's like another Tom Waits story that's like on a TED talk,
Mm.
of like driving in his car and an idea just kind of crossing paths and going like, oh, shit, go find somebody else, go find somebody else. Like I can't do this right now. I'm driving and now with, like, you always have a cell phone, you can
Yeah.
stop it, you can do something, but it didn't used to be like that. It used to be that you had to go over something in your mind a lot, until you could get it recorded. And now you can just like do it, and uh you could, if you were really dedicated, you could probably, write and put together an album in like 3 days.
Hmm.
And it's taken stuff. It's taken a little magic out of it for me, I mean.
Is so sitting down and kind of noodling with the guitar, is that how most of the songs come together for you?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Mostly, I just really love the sound of it, and that's why another reason I haven't been doing a lot of music, reason, excuse, whatever, is I've had a lot of shoulder problems, and I have a really bad posture when I'm playing. So I bought the keyboard hoping that I'd be able to go back to that process of just like noodling around the keyboard, and maybe have better posture and write more songs um, on that. But yeah, it turns out that uh, you know, it's so natural to play guitar for me, and I'm just so comfortable doing it. And I'm so in love with what happens when I'm with just listening. I mean, sometimes I'll just pick up the guitar and listen to the notes, I'll just play a G and go like, oh, that's such a nice sound. um, that's how much I love it. Um, more
Is I'm sorry.
than playing a song. Go
I
Yeah, more even sometimes than playing a song. I have a short attention span. Go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, I think my connection is not great on this end, but the are you, now that like you're forced to be at home and you have this nice little studio, is this something that you find yourself coming back to?
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all the stuff was around here. It was already set up. It's not like I kind of, we just moved into this house. We moved in December, and I've been bringing it together. It's kind of like I'm realizing my dream of having a real home studio, because the apartments that I've lived in before were smaller, and I didn't have enough space. Like I have a whole drum kit a few feet away. I can't play it because I do have neighbors,
Mhm.
but I have a drum kit, and I've put my guitars up where I can reach them, where I don't have to open a closet and pull things out. Um, I've built this space. I put together this space sort of thinking that I was going to um, make some music this year, like for real. And and I don't have really good equipment, even though this is not a very nice mic. It's a regular, like, um because also when I used to be seriously putting out records, everyone I was around was like such a equipment geek,
Mhm.
and it was like, oh, you need, the $3,000 microphone, and you need to have the best sound card and all this gear, and I just have the cheapest gear that I could, not the cheapest, but just,
Yeah.
reasonably, like, really entry level stuff. um and I'm excited for spending some times in my afternoons playing music and doing things. The only trouble I have right now is this is also my workspace because I work from home. So changing modes from like working and then recording and playing music is a little bit complicated. So I'm starting to fix that problem with like some digital separation.
So what's life like there? I feel like you guys are probably, 3 weeks or about a month ahead of us. And, I think we're probably about to go through something really similar here. The numbers, I think as of yesterday, I think Spain just eclipsed China for number of cases. Not that you have opportunity to get out very much these days, but like what's the general sense around there?
Yeah, I mean, it's sad. I talk to friends. Um, there are a lot of people around me who freelance for a living and don't. Even though there are some, I know a lot of English teachers, people who clean houses, people who work in restaurants, people who own stores, and the outlook is not very good for them. There's a lot of concern with how the economy is going to be hit by that, and their personal economies. These people who are living month to month are just like freaking out. They're like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay rent this month. Um, the I think I mentioned this to you the other day. It's starting to I'm starting to talk to more and more people who have had it and who have relatives who've had it. And a friend a friend's father passed away. Uh, he'd gone into surgery for something minor, and then being in I'm kind of freaked out to go to the doctors, which is not a good thing, actually, because I'm a diabetic, and sometimes I have to do things at the doctors. But going to health centers right now and places, they're just overwhelmed, and that you get that feeling. And there's a lot of stuff going around. There's some interesting things, like my neighbors are I didn't participate in it, but what one thing they do is like 8 p.m. every night they go out and they applaud people who work in healthcare. And I know it's 8 o'clock because I hear people clapping outside.
They just they
um,
they just stand on the sidewalks out there?
they just go out on go out to the
Oh, on the
window
balconies
and
and
the
okay.
balconies and start clapping. And they do that, every day. um,
That's nice.
just kind of like support. Yeah,
Yeah.
so they're trying to find some good things to think about because it's really easy to get down. I'm lucky that I live in a big house right now, but most of the time that I've lived in Spain, I've lived in Madrid, lived in smaller apartments, and most people live in very small and expensive apartments. I'm sure you have some experience with that in New York. So there's a lot of
Yep.
there's a lot of similarities in that sense, in that uh, being stuck in being not being able to leave the house and only being able to go out for supermarket and to walk your dog. Then there's a lot of jokes going around, and people like trying to game the system. Like, there's some poor dog that gets 8 walks a day
Mhm.
now.
Sure.
Right, every member of the
Sure.
family gets to walk the
Yeah.
dog. And people go into the supermarket to buy toothpaste one day and then go into the supermarket the next day to buy this. And they're trying to figure out some rules to make people
The
actually
polls, yeah.
yeah, go for just gaming the system is a very big Spanish thing. It's like if they tell you there's a rule, you're going to find a way to break it without not actually breaking it. And it's part of it's a national pastime, and it's not something that we can afford to do right now. So yeah. And yeah, the mood generally is pretty low when you hear about cases. I work I work with people who are planning our what we're going to do this month at work, and it's not just Madrid; it's all of Spain that is in lockdown. And we were planning our work, and they're like, "Do you really think that this team of 8 people, everyone's going to get all this work done when they have their 2-year-old running around the house and Their wife is sharing a death with them. People really struggle with balancing that. Companies that I thought would be able to go remote very easily, the people are having a lot of trouble adapting to working remotely. It's not like you just from one day to the next you're teaching English lessons online or planning marketing campaigns as a team of 5. And I think that also takes a toll, just like confusion and frustration and not knowing how to work with your coworkers remotely and missing human contact. All that stuff is seems like kind of rough, but um, the flip side of that is that you realize who your friends are, and you get lots of text messages from people that you haven't spoken to in a while, just checking in on you, knowing that how's your family, are you guys okay, how are your kids. That's nice, to know that people that you kind of haven't seen for a few months because life, care how you're doing, and being able to do that for other people.
So, obviously here we're still very much kind of in what feels like the beginning stages of it, in spite of what our president may have said. But we're all definitely still very much processing it day to day. It sounds like it's the same over there, even though you've been dealing with it more directly for longer.
Yeah. What's like the time frame on this? For me, it's been 2 weeks. I was supposed to take a trip on 2 weeks ago on a Friday, and we didn't decide to cancel our trip until Thursday morning.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, my husband was freaking out about it too. He was like, "You should not go on this trip." And I was like, "But I really want to go on this trip." And it just seemed like the news and the government and everything was okay. And then it was not okay. It just happened, bang, from one day to the next. That was kind of uh, it didn't seem as serious at the beginning. 2 weeks ago, it seemed like, as long as you washed your hands and you didn't ride the subway, you'd be okay. But that's not the case. And it also seems that, only if you were certain, above. I spoke to my nurse and at the health center before I took my trip, and she said, because I'm a diabetic and supposedly one of these at-risk people, and she was like, "No, if you're not above, if you're not over 50 and have respiratory issues, you shouldn't be that concerned about it." People didn't realize it, and now I know people who were, the other day, a geeky friend of my husband's, who's 50 years old and lives in Zaragoza, I think, passed away. One day he's fine, and the next. So all that, when that becomes a reality, and it is the people that you know and the people that you engage with are so in the thick of it. It's not like something that's happening in Italy, which was the whole thing 2 weeks ago for us. It's like, oh yeah, that's happening in Italy. Italy's fucked. We'll get through.
Italy's not very far from Spain, Irene.
Yeah, but hey, I was looking at the cases in India, because of course, I started to watch the pandemic documentary on Netflix because I'm that kind of a masochist. And I was watching it, and I was seeing how they were at the beginning. It was India, and I was like, so what are the cases in India at that point? And I was looking at it. India was okay, and India's really close to China. It's not really that the proximity, it's the amount of relations that they have.
Sure. I mean, you are part of a European Union.
Yeah.
There's a lot of commerce and back and forth. I assume more than probably transpires between India and China, which seem relatively shut off from one another.
Yeah, I guess it's the whole, that probably has a lot to do with it. So it's not the proximity, is the amount of human contact going through the whole. So yeah, it's also the the most and I think this happens there too, when it's going to end is just very unclear.
Yeah.
And we were so optimistic at the beginning that there's no more room for optimism, and just kind of pessimism is starting to take over. There's no level-headedness about this. It's like, oh, schools are going to be closed until June, and what are people going to do with their kids? And so panic is starting to set in, but they can't run out in the streets and scream.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, on that incredibly depressing note, do you want to take us out with 2 more songs?
Sure. Okay. 2 more songs. Okay. Yeah.
Maybe something upbeat if you have something upbeat in the arsenal.
I don't have anything upbeat.
Okay.
So I went on the internet and I printed out a song that I think is upbeat.
Okay. Are you going to play us a ska song? Is that what's about to happen?
I remember that. No, I'm going to play a Daniel Johnston song.
Okay. Oh, perfect.
Because I did remember that. Yeah, I did remember that you liked Daniel Johnston, and
R.I.P.
And this is that's another one of those things that happened recently. Gosh. Yeah, this is an upbeat song, and I think it's it's a song that I always get mixed up with another, so I probably will end up. It's something that I like to hum.
It'll be a medley.
Yeah, it's don't let the sun go down on your grievances, but I always end up singing any other Daniel Johnston song. It just ends up, and I love this song because I like hum it to myself, and I always sing, do yourself a favor, become your own neighbor. It's just like but when I pulled it up to see how it went, I went, oh, become your own savior. And then reading about it, I realized that it's a pretty good song for couples that I know who are stuck with each other in small apartments and are having a lot more fights than they usually have because they see each other all the time, and you can't really get rid of your partner that easily. I mean, I can, because I can lock them in the basement, but I don't know, my sister can't. So I think this one will go out to her and her husband, who are, love each other very much, but more than once have to go to sleep. I'm kind of pissed off at the other for not doing the things the way that they want. Let's see. Don't let the sun go down on your grievances. Respect love of the heart over lust of the flesh. Do yourself a favor, become your own savior, and don't let the sun go down on your grievances. And when you wake up in the morning, you'll have a brand new feeling, and you'll find yourself healing. So don't let the sun go down on your grievances. And yet if you find yourself in the dark and you're left holding the bag, then take care of it right away. And don't let the sun go down on your grievances again. Sometime you might want to give up, but keep that chin up, 'cause you're gonna find you're gonna find sometimes you might be alone. But don't feel lonely, 'cause you're gonna find, you're gonna find. So don't let the sun go down on your grievances. Start each day with a clean slate. You'll feel better if you can shake off all that hate. And don't forget to forgive and forget. And don't let the sun go down on your grievances.
Right. Thank you for that. Like, I'm shocked and honored that you remembered.
Uh-huh.
It's been a very long time.
Yeah, I'm cursed with a very good memory sometimes. Darn, for like another song, it's like a sad song. I don't think I want to play sad songs anymore.
That's okay. No, you know what? I've had you for long enough. We can call it if I think this was great. I think Daniel's a good one to end on.
Good. Okay.
Awesome. Was there anything, I mean, you know, now that you're playing music again, is there anything you'd like to plug at Twitter or Bandcamp or other ways to get your music?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have a couple of things on YouTube. I could send a link because yeah, I do like to do some covers and record them and have them on YouTube. I have a real big Judy Collins obsession. I feed through recording Judy Collins songs and like really high pitched voices. So if anybody wants to hear that, they can check out my YouTube channel. And
are you doing
I also
Both Sides Now? Is that on the list?
That's a new obsession. I always hated that song, but
really, what's such a fantastic song.
It is, but I first version I heard of that song was the whole version.
Oh, well,
and that just ruined that for me.
Fair.
You know
yeah.
And you know, I'm a big Joni Mitchell fan too, and did it just seem like a real obvious Joni Mitchell song, but the Judy Collins one is just amazing. I really like her version. I've gotten into her version now. And then she has a whole bunch of other things that that just like really kick my butt when I listen to them. So I've tried to do some of those songs and you know, listening to that stuff if you feel like it. And I also have a Bandcamp where I got to do a song for a commercial a few years ago. I forgot to tell you about that. It was just like I got to sing a bolero, which is a Spanish.
Yeah.
This is my total mom cred was that this ad agency, like an independent filmmaker had made a movie and used one of my songs for free. And then years later, when she had to do an ad for like a big perfume cologne brand, baby cologne brand in Spain called Nenuco.
Baby cologne brand? Is that what you said?
Nenuco, yeah, it's cologne for babies. It's like when you clean up your baby and then you put cologne on it.
Babies smell pretty bad, so I can see a market for that for sure.
Yeah, Nenuco's a big thing in Spain. I mean, everybody knows it, and this ad was on TV all the time. So, and it had me playing a bolero, song in Spanish, a typical song called Toda Una Vida on the ukulele for this ad that this filmmaker made. And that was really fun. I completely forgot about that. But definitely my mom and my husband don't forget about it. They love to remind people that, you know, she did that, Toda Una Vida. So when I did that with that money, I recorded like a hi-fi version of the bolero that's like really jazzy and fun, and that's on Bandcamp. And I totally recommend people checking that out, along with a few demos that I like to upload. And if I get my shit together, I hope to be uploading some more songs there too. I just have to finish them.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And every time you smell a baby, please think of Irene.
Every time you what? Sorry, I missed that.
Every time you smell a baby.
Every time you smell a perfumed baby.
Every time you
I
smell
mean,
perfumed baby.
people in
Download
the
some
US
music.
go out and find Nanuko. Nanuko cologne is a real discovery.
Yeah.
Okay.
Irene, thank you so much. And thanks for doing this so late. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
Have a
Thanks.
good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.